All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Valerie Friedlander, and I'm your host for Motherhood Unlimited, the #1 summit for moms who want it all. Welcome and thank you for joining us. It is our mission to take the limits off motherhood and empower moms to have it all for their own unique and vibrant life. We believe that when moms learn to create where, who, and how they want to be, their happiness and overall life satisfaction increases, and they become inspired and inspirational for their children and each other. Today, we are talking about postpartum mental health and building self-esteem. Our expert is Christina Hibbert. I invited her to share with you because of her work supporting postpartum women and couples, and her living message that dreams can come true through hard work, unending patience, and trust in God's timing. Thank you so much for being here, Christina.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So before we get started, let me tell you all a little bit about Christina. Christina is the best-selling author of This Is How We Grow, Who Am I Without You, and 8 Keys to Mental Health Through Exercise. She is a clinical psychologist specializing in women's mental health, grief, loss, motherhood, parenting, pregnancy, postpartum, self-esteem, self-worth, and personal growth, and is host to the weekly radio show Motherhood. Dr. Hibbert is a dynamic speaker, the founder of the Arizona Postpartum Wellness Coalition, and producer of the internationally sold DVD Postpartum Couples. She, her husband, and their 6 children live in Flagstaff, Arizona. And to learn more about her through her popular website and blog, you can see www.drchristinahibbert.com. And her blog is called The Psychologist, The Mom and Me. So welcome again. It's so wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So I always start out asking, tell us a little bit about your journey to taking the limits off of motherhood.
Well, it's quite a story. I wrote a whole book about it, really. But, you know, I have 6 kids because of events that happened back in 2007 when my brother-in-law and sister both died, and we inherited our 2 nephews while I was pregnant with our 4th baby. So we inherited our nephews, gave birth 3 weeks later, and basically went from 3 to 6 kids.
Wow.
Now, before that, I had gone to graduate school when I had 2 little kids. So I guess I had started this a little younger. You know, I don't know, I felt compelled to go and get my doctorate in psychology, and that was a difficult time, but it was exciting because, and I was able to become an expert in postpartum mental health because of my own postpartum depression, having my first couple of kids. And so when this all happened in 2007, it was amazing because I was prepared for it in a sense. You know, I had a lot of training in parenting and grief and loss and in postpartum and all this, and this is what our family was going through. So at that time, though, I really felt like, even though I was prepared as a mother and I was ready to take on this role of being a mom of 6 and try to make this family work and try to help us heal and all this, I also felt like my dreams were sort of gone. You know, I couldn't, how could I ever fulfill any of my dreams? I wanted to be an author. I loved speaking. I had wanted to be a speaker. And I thought, there's no way. I have 6 kids now, so there's no way I can become what I wanted to become. But somewhere down the road, I learned that, you know, we might have these pauses. We might have times and seasons, as I like to say, of motherhood, when we have to take a step back, when we have to focus on our family, on ourselves, on our health, on our mental health. But that if we can be patient and stick with it, those can often lead to even greater opportunities and possibilities. And I ended up publishing my first book about that experience. So had that not happened, I wouldn't have published my first book, which led to then my second and third book deals, which has led to greater opportunities to speak and do things online like I'm doing with you. So yeah. I'm a believer in, you know, sometimes the things that seem like the things that are going to stop us in our tracks are often fruit kind of can get us going in a new direction and really provide us with new insight, new understanding, new awareness, new knowledge that we can then go out and share with others. So I'm a big believer in that.
Awesome. Yeah, actually what you're saying reminds me of this. My son has a book called Zen Shorts, and in it there's a little short story about this farmer who has good things happen, and they go, everybody's like, yay, you had these wonderful things, and he said, maybe. Yeah. And then something bad happens. We go, oh, bad luck. It's so bad. And he's like, maybe, and it's just kind of this, it's just the events that happen and as they unfold and how you grow. So,
right.
yeah.
How you look at it and what you do with it, really. So,
yeah. Awesome. So I would love to hear more about, I know a lot of the women in this audience have struggled with postpartum depression or just the mood stuff that comes along with it. I'm kind of wondering, well, do I have postpartum? Like, I'm still not feeling myself. And I would love for you to share about what does this look like? How do we figure that out and take care of ourselves?
Yeah, that's a big one. And I do think that most of us are kind of unprepared for especially the emotional changes that happen in pregnancy and postpartum. And yet it's very common to experience changes in our emotions, in our thinking, in our behaviors after we become pregnant and after we have a baby, of course, after we become moms. So it's the more we talk about it, the better prepared we'll be, right? So in general, when we talk about postpartum mental health, we're really talking about this spectrum of mental health that starts really preconception and trying to get ready to have a baby, definitely in pregnancy, and postpartum. The postpartum period technically is up to a year after the child's born, but let's face it, it really can go on as long as, depending on our situation, our circumstances, if we get help or not. Some of the things we go through, some of those changes might be permanent, or they might just be something that lasts for a longer time because we needed help and we didn't get it. So when we talk about that, we not only talk about a spectrum of time, but also a spectrum of emotional changes that can happen. And on the very light end of the spectrum are the baby blues, which we all heard of, and most of us have experienced because 80% of women experience the baby blues. So, 4 out of 5 people experience the baby blues, and that's, that makes it a normal occurrence. So you're going to feel that emotional roller coaster. You're going to feel weepy one minute, elated the next, wondering what on earth is going on with me. I'm all over the place. But this is in part just to, first of all, hello, you've been pregnant for 9 months. Then you've also been sleep deprived, probably. You're probably not sleeping well now that you've had the baby, even worse probably. And you've just been through labor and delivery, which is a major event. And now you're supposed to somehow kind of come home and be normal. And it's just, there's so many changes. There's so many questions psychologically, even of, am I going to, all these things hit us.
You blipped out for a second. Say that last thing again, that you're going to.
Just let me know. If I do again, just let me know.
Okay.
So yeah, all of these changes hit us all at once, all these questions, and not to mention changes in our hormones, which had just been incredibly high in pregnancy. And then when we give birth, they dip below normal, and it takes a while for them to regulate again. And that can influence our emotions as well. So that's the baby blues. And then if the baby blues last for more than 2 weeks in general, or intensify, meaning they get worse in a period of days or whatever, then we're probably looking more at something like postpartum depression. And that can happen mildly. It can be a mild depression where you feel low. You don't feel happy like you normally do, but you're functioning. Or it could be more severe where you really aren't able to function. You're not able to get out of bed. You're not able to do what you want to do. And so depression, it includes like feeling sad, overwhelmed. With postpartum depression, it can include feelings of anger, feelings of resentment. Why am I feeling like this? All I wanted to do was be a great mother, and here I am. Sometimes we feel disconnected from the baby when we have depression. You can feel like you're not able to be the kind of mom you want to be. So there's a lot of feelings of worthlessness and guilt, helplessness, hopelessness, these kinds of things. And postpartum depression affects 20%, about 20% of all new moms. So 1 in 5 are going to experience that level of depression. But then there's also all these other disorders. There's numerous other disorders that can happen. First of all, the anxiety disorders. And a lot of times anxiety disorders are missed because people and, medical providers and even mental health providers sometimes think that, being anxious and worrying is just part of being a mom. That's just normal. You've got a baby now. But it's not. And so we can have a postpartum anxiety disorder where maybe we are feeling, but feeling anxious all the time, extreme worry that's interfering with our sleep. We're not, that's interfering with our ability to function, that's making us physically sick. A lot of times with anxiety disorders, women show up in the emergency room because they think they're having, they're dying or something. So it can lead to things like panic attacks. Mm-hmm. And postpartum panic disorder affects about 10% of all postpartum women and can also occur in pregnancy at a little bit lower rate. So, and then what happens often is with the anxiety disorders is you show up to a medical provider because the anxiety feels so physical, mm-hmm. and they might put you on some kind of, tell you have some kind of medical problem, or maybe they think they're looking at your heart because there's something wrong with your heart, and they're not even seeing that it might be this psychological issue that's part of this change of motherhood. You're going to have anxiety, and at those intense levels, it's really hard to deal with. Mm-hmm. And then you have postpartum obsessive compulsive disorder, which is the most misunderstood and the least, the one disorder that people have heard of least. Mm-hmm. And this is where you actually have images of the baby that might come that are disturbing and troubling. And it might be that you see the baby fly, we all walk past the stairs and we hold our baby a little closer. We might feel a little nervous, what if they fell? That would be awful. These moms would actually see the baby falling over. So mm-hmm. It's very distressing. And the important thing to note is that with these images or thoughts that have happened, there's a sense of intense anxiety and distress about it, because why am I thinking this? Am I going crazy? What is going on? And these women worry that they're going crazy, that they're becoming psychotic, and they're not. It's a misfiring of the brain chemistry, and medication and therapy can help, but these women are never going to, we have no indication, nothing on record of a woman with postpartum OCD ever harming her child, but they can be misdiagnosed and misunderstood as being psychotic. And psychosis is the most extreme. It's on the way other end of the spectrum, but it's rare. It only occurs in about 1 in every 1,000 births, and it's a medical emergency. That's where you really are out of touch with reality. You might see or hear things. You might have hallucinations or believe things, false beliefs called delusions, and not know that they're wrong. Mm-hmm. So that's very different saying, oh yeah, I believe that I should, one woman that I worked with, she was telling her husband to go buy teen magazines and really red nail polish. It wasn't even scary or, extremely dangerous or anything. It just wasn't her. She mm-hmm. wasn't like that. And so that was the beginning of some psychotic behavior. She didn't know that was anything other than ordinary, right? Mm-hmm. So we have all these disorders that can happen. And again, like OCD happens to about 3 to 5% of all women. The psychosis is more rare. And then we also have PTSD, which can happen from childbirth, just from the distress and trauma of giving birth. And some births are worse than others. So you can experience post-traumatic stress disorder, which affects about 6% of women as well. So there's a wide range of symptoms. There's a wide range of what can happen, but it's good to talk about, because the more that we talk about it, the more we start to see, oh, maybe that's what I have. And maybe I should reach out for help, because like I said, if we reach out for help, they're treatable. They can be treated with, with medication in some cases, with therapies, wonderful place to start. Mm-hmm. And social support, going to a support group, help, getting people to come and help with the baby, give you a break, that kind of thing. And the more that we talk about it, the more I'm hoping moms out there will go, oh, okay, maybe I can let someone help me. Because I know when I had postpartum depression, I didn't want anybody to help me because I felt like I was a failure as a mom if I let them help me. But we're not, right? We're not. So we have to take care of ourselves, and then the whole family can benefit if we do.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's such a big thing of that I talk a lot about, is that you're not a failure for asking for help. I mean, even people in the helping profession ask for help. It's just, needing that support of other professionals. That's kind of what this is all about, actually. It's there's so many different ways to ask for support. But I'm so glad that you shared all those different things, because, we always hear about the psychosis, all the movies talk about the psychotic mom after having the baby. And so it is easy to think, if I'm walking up the stairs, because I've had this happen of I'll walk up the stairs and I'm I'm hold my baby closer, but occasionally I'll imagine that happening, and it's really freaky. And I have, when that happened, I was is something am I starting to lose it? And I knew that I mean, I was able to work through that and knew that I wasn't, but like, if it happened too much, absolutely I would, I mean, that would be very scary. And so I'm so glad that you went through that. It feels so much better.
Exactly. And I'm so glad, because it's so hard for women to talk about. I mean, I know women who've suffered with symptoms for months because they don't want to, like you say, admit that something's not right or ask for help. They won't even tell their husband or partner what's going on, you know, and really we don't have to suffer. That's one thing I want to say is we shouldn't have to suffer. It's not a normal part of becoming a mother. It's not. It's normal in the sense that we have changes to our emotions, but when it gets to that level where it's affecting our life, when it's affecting our family, when it's affecting how we feel about ourselves, and really postpartum stuff totally hits self-esteem. I know we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
Then we need to do something, because the best thing we can do as moms is to take care of ourselves, so then we're well and able to give our kids what they need. And when we're mentally not doing well, we just can't. I mean, I know I've been through depression, postpartum depression, anxiety, you know, extreme grief and loss, head trauma. I mean, you name it. And it's hard. It's hard to stop and say, I need help. But if we don't do that, we're no good to anybody else, especially to ourselves. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Asking for help. It's like, it doesn't mean that something's wrong with us. Oh, and you froze again. So hopefully it comes back. See, this is like where we go, IT guy, we're asking for help. Ah, there you go. That's all you needed to do.
It's not free.
I don't have to call. I just have to ask for help. I'm no IT guy, but I just ask for it. Sometimes just, you know, be open to something different makes a difference. So yeah, I do. I want to, I would love to have you share about like that self-esteem piece, and how do we, you know, all right, so we know, all right, we need to get over it and ask for help, but how do we keep our self-esteem up in this kind of overwhelming process of transition?
So true. Such a good question. Because I think if there's anything that motherhood is all about, it's about a huge shift in identity. It's about that question of who am I now? You know, I like to write songs in my free time. And one of the first songs I wrote about motherhood is who am I now that you are here? You know, kind of like, it's that big question. That's really what the core is. And so whether you have pregnancy or postpartum depression or anxiety or anything like that, or whether you have a pretty smooth emotional transition, or whether, you know, going on into motherhood, there's other times of our life that are vulnerable to depression, especially, you know, PMS. The older we get, we're more likely to have something like PMS emotional symptoms, or PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is all kind of related to these sensitivity and hormones and the shifts in hormones and all that. And all of those things that we go through can impact our self-esteem, and they do. They make us wonder, you know, well, if I can't do this, then who am I? And am I good enough? And you know, all these questions. So I think self-esteem is a huge issue, definitely when we're first starting out, because we're just trying to get the hang of it. But throughout the whole process, I've got 6 kids, two are in college, my youngest is 8. And, you know, as they leave for school, it's that, oh, did I do enough? And was I good? And, you know, trying to deal with that all again. So it keeps coming up throughout motherhood, throughout the whole process.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is such a big one of like that, the who. And I know that when we are feel disconnected from who we think we are, that's exactly when we start feeling the most like, is something wrong with me, or like something's out of sync. And when we feel something's out of sync, we're automatically like, that inner critic starts going nuts and saying things. So what would you say the audience, if anyone is experiencing that, I am going to guess that a fair number are, or at least have been here and there, what would you say is some of the best things that we can do to improve that for ourselves?
Well, you made a really important point just a minute ago, because you said we compare how we are, what we're doing, what we look like, how we act, all these things with who we think we are or who we think we should be. And to me, that kind of is a good way to express what self-esteem is. So I've actually done a lot of work in this area. My book, Who Am I Without You, is all about self-esteem and self-worth and how to build it. And my newest book on exercise and mental health has a whole chapter on exercise for building self-esteem, and talks about this, because I created a whole theory on this, because I started to see that no matter who I was seeing in my office, no matter whether they were male or female or what phase of life they were in or what their problems were that they were coming in for, at the core, there was almost always an issue with self-esteem. And there was this kind of sense of, I know I should feel this way about myself. Like, people tell me I'm good at this, or people say this about me. I know I should believe that, but I don't. And I don't feel that. So my question as a psychologist was, how do you help people feel that when they just don't? You know, you can tell them, no, you're wonderful, you're beautiful, you're amazing. But if it's not getting in, how do you make that change?
Yeah.
So to me, I started to really look at this and how do we help people through this? And I created what I call the pyramid of self-worth. So I'll explain what that is, because that gives some very specific things that everybody listening can do, which is wonderful. But first, I want to explain what I think is the difference between self-esteem and self-worth, because most people lump them together. A lot of times if you look up self-worth, it says see self-esteem. But to me, self-esteem is what we think about ourselves. It's how we feel about ourselves. It's what other people say about us and how we feel about that and what we think about that. It's how we behave. It's how we look. It's kind of, you know, what we think and feel about basically about the outside of us. But self-worth is different. Self-worth is who we really are. So self-worth says, I don't care what you think about yourself. You really are this person. You know, you really are this. You really have these strengths, and you really are beautiful in this way, and you really have these great things about you, and you have these weaknesses. You know, it's being honest about it versus self-esteem, which is sort of caught up in, oh, I didn't do that very well. And, you know, if I'm not the best at X, Y, or Z, I'm not going to feel good about myself. And so what I started to see was most of the approaches focus on building self-esteem. So,
wait, we lost you for a second. Okay, there you are. You're back. So self-esteem, self-worth.
Okay, so back up to self-esteem is talking about, if I missed something, let me know.
No, you got that. You were moving into where you were going to go with.
Okay, so it froze right at the end. So yes, so self-esteem is what we think, and most approaches focus on that, building self-esteem, changing how we think. But self-worth is knowing and understanding who we are from deep down. So you see, self-esteem to me is up here, and self-worth it's inside. We have to go through all the muck and yuck that we've piled up on ourselves over the years that we've been through, all the things we've been through, and find it and feel it. So that's how this pyramid of self-worth works, in my opinion, is I've used it to try to help clients and myself to feel that. So it's basically a pyramid, and on the bottom level, there's 3 levels that, to me, if we can work through these 3 things, then we can begin to experience self-worth. And so first is self-awareness. So first, it makes sense, right? If we know about ourselves, we have to know about ourselves, right? We have to be willing to see the good, the bad, the ugly, and the exceptional, which is often the hardest for we women, and especially for moms, I would say. Just accept a compliment, right? We do that. So for some of us, it's going to be harder to accept that I have these weaknesses, and for some of us, it's going to be harder to say, I'm so great at this, you know? But why can't we? Why can't we go around and say, I am so good at this? I feel so good about that. Why is that bragging when we really know it and it's true, you know? So we just need to be aware. So one thing I have people do is just start by keeping a list of your strengths and your weaknesses. So just like you're an investigator, pretend you're actually investigating someone else, because it's easier to see in other people than ourselves. You can enlist the help of loved ones if you're brave enough to actually want their true answers. But, you know, what are my strengths and my weaknesses? And just start listing them out and add to them as you go. And it'll tell you right off the bat a few things about yourself, because if your strengths are like this long and your weaknesses are a full page, then probably that's not accurate, and probably you're hung up on some of these weaknesses. You're only seeing the bad side. You're not seeing all the good, right?
Or you're asking people who you should not be asking.
Well, that's for sure. And I do mean it takes courage to be able to get a strong will. I did this years ago. I did this exercise that I learned about in a book, but you had to ask 3 people that were close to you, what are the 3 things they most admire about you and that they least admire about you. So that's another thing you can do if you're up for it, but you have to be willing to hear what they have to say. But it can tell you a lot from another person's perspective that knows you. And of course, you're going to pick hopefully people that will be kind and, loving in the way that they approach it. But, I was able to learn some things about myself that I didn't realize just from someone else's perspective. So this can be obviously what we think and how we feel about ourselves and keeping track of those things, but also we can enlist the help of loved ones. I would advise, not people that don't like you. Don't listen to those people that are haters, forget them,
Yeah, I say that just because I know that when I was in various stages of my life, there were people that I had around me that were always kind of the negative space, instead of the growing space. It was always that kind of victim mentality. And that was what I was attracting at that point in my life. But knowing that those are not necessarily the people that I want to start growing with around me. So yeah, but I love that. The really getting clear on what am I awesome at?
Yeah.
And what do I want to work on? Or maybe just what do I not want to push myself? Like maybe this is not a strength for me, and that's okay. Maybe I just let that be a strength for somebody else.
Right. Exactly. That's the beauty of it. And that's what I mean by investigating, like you're getting paid to do it, and just find the facts. We're just trying to find the facts and list them out. Either keep a list of your strengths and weaknesses, or you can also start, I have this exercise on my website. You can find through my Who Am I Without You website. And it's called the I Am exercise, which I love. It's just a bunch of words, and they're crazy words. Some of them are like happy, brilliant, amazing, these kinds of things. Some of them are, a cheater, a liar, horrible, these kinds of things. And you just sit with the words in front of a mirror and you just say, I am this word, and I am happy. And then you just see how it affects you. This is from a different level. This isn't.
And we went out.
Oh, sorry.
You said this is from this is not from this level.
It's not from a thinking level. It's more from just an emotional response. So anything you have a response to, you circle it. It might be that I am totally not that. I'm definitely not crazy, right? Okay, so circle that. Or it might be, maybe I am that. Or it might be, I don't know why that bugs me to say I am crazy. But and it's a different level of understanding. And then I have clients come in and we talk about it, and we talk about why they feel these things or what came up. It's just another way of being self-aware. And even what you just said, being aware of your relationships, what's bringing you down, what's building you up, right? And getting rid of the ones that we don't need, right? So anything we can do to be more aware of ourselves, non-judgmentally aware, that's the hard part.
Yeah.
But see all sides and make it balanced. And then number 2, the second layer, which I say is probably the toughest one, and probably the one that we'll be working on forever, is self-acceptance. And that's taking these things down, and you do it piece by piece. I think that's the easiest way, and trying to accept those things. So for instance, if I've accepted something about myself, it's not going to have some kind of emotional pull over me. I'm not going to feel bad about it. Like, I am not a good gardener. I'm a terrible gardener. And I feel like I could be good. Maybe later. I feel like now I'm growing children, and later I'll go grow plants. But I forget to water them. They die. I'm not good at it. So I accept that. Right. So, okay. So if someone tells us we're a terrible gardener, it's like, yeah, I know. I stink at that. Versus if somebody were to say something to me about something that I haven't accepted about myself yet, then I'd probably be resistant. I'd probably be like, I don't think so. I don't think I'm like that. If my husband tells me I'm acting crazy when I'm hormonal, and really I have been acting crazy, I'm probably like, no, I'm fine. I'm normal. And then later I realize, oh yeah, I was kind of acting crazy. So, we have to accept those things so that we can be okay with them. And that goes with accepting the exceptional things about ourselves too. So for someone to say, to me, you're a great speaker, I can say, well, thank you, because I love to speak. It's my favorite thing. But if someone were to say, you're great at X, Y, or Z that I haven't accepted, then I'd be like, no, we get all that women thing of, no, I'm not, or it was no big deal, or whatever we do. So self-acceptance is really huge, and it really can happen piece by piece. Also, at different stages and phases of motherhood, we're going to have to re-accept things about ourselves. We're going to be different parents to our teenagers and to our grown children that we were when they were babies. And so we have to become re-aware and re-accept things about ourselves as mothers, especially because if there's one thing our kids are good at, it's showing us our strengths and weaknesses. Really.
So true. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that whole, like, one of the things I've seen with my kids of that pushing buttons and the challenging, the pushing the boundaries. It's like they have this radar for the places where I need the work or where my buttons are. And so if I can take that and instead, what I found is when I see that they're challenging me and taking a look at, okay, so what is this bringing up for me? Like, there's a lot of letting go of the control, or, you know, I'm not like really a child-oriented person. That's just not my thing. And I used to have this thing of like, I'm supposed to be like this. I had not accepted that, no, I'm not the stay-at-home mom. Like, I want to be working, and I have a strength with adult people, not as much little people. And so part of me, you know, I'm like, okay, I accept this. I want to nurture it more, but I'm also not going to push myself to be in a space that isn't me. I much rather my kids, I mean, for me, sending them to daycare made more sense because I knew that I needed more adult time to have quality time with them, and that they would get a lot out of the teachers who are able to more consistently and for a longer length of time really be at the level that they need someone to be with them for all of the little person growing activities, you know?
It's so good to realize that. The sooner we realize that, the sooner we can accept ourselves and play to our strengths. Like you said, one of the things I wrote in my first book, This Is How We Grow, because it's a memoir, I wrote, I'm not the best get on the floor and play with my kids kind of mom. I'm more of a talk about your problems kind of mom. And I can't tell you, that's one of the things that I've heard from people who have read the book. Like, I'm so glad you said that, because I am not a play on the floor. Like, I have to force myself to play Barbies or Play-Doh. You know, it's just torture to me. But, you know, I'm good in this way. So you're right. We have to find our strengths and play to those strengths. And as we accept the strengths and the weaknesses, and then, like you say, we can find the situation that works for our family that's going to be best. And that's key to unlocking our potential when we're talking about that, because it's just until we accept these things about ourselves, we really won't be able to do that. And I do want to say that a lot of people misunderstand acceptance too, and you kind of alluded to this, which I wanted to bring out. Accepting doesn't mean we agree with it. It doesn't mean we like it. It doesn't mean we want it, right? It just means that we accept that this is how it is right now. So when I say I accept that I'm moody right now, you know, I'm not saying I like it and I want to stay that way and I'm not going to change it because I accepted it. I'm saying I accept that this is how I am. So because I accept it, I can stop fighting myself over not being moody or depressed. I mean, I see that all the time. I'm not depressed. I'm just blah, blah, blah. Or I'm not struggling with mental health. I'm just tired. And as soon as we can accept it, you know what? I am struggling with anxiety. It's like you can exhale. Yeah. And then you can solve the problem. So you can either, like you say, accept it and say, I like how I am and I'm not really going to put the effort into it to change, or I really need to change this, or I need to get help, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the difference between like white knuckling it and like, I'm just going to get through it. And I heard that, you know, time is how we manage our day and energy is how we manage our emotions. And so when I let go of that, like, trying to be somewhere I'm not, then I have so much more energy to move to where I want to be, instead of just like blowing this energy. Like, it's like a tire with an air leak or something, you know, like I'm just deflating, and it makes it so much harder to do anything differently. So yeah, I love that.
I love it.
Awesome.
So our final piece that all moms can use this one, whether you are struggling with self-esteem or not, is self-love. So self-love is a tricky one, I think, for moms in particular. I think for women in general and moms in particular, because we are so busy giving other love to our families that we put ourselves aside. We don't even put ourselves on the list, right? So, but we can't take care of ourselves if we're not loving ourselves too. And not only that, but what are we modeling for our children if we don't love ourselves? Yeah. So there are actually 4 ways that I've identified that we can actively change and work on loving ourselves better. Okay. So first of all is self-kindness. So do nice things for yourself. Doing nice things. So think about this. What would you do for somebody else in your same situation? So let's say a mom who's exhausted and has little kids, maybe you'd offer to babysit for her, or you'd give her a break or something, but will you give that to yourself? Will you get a babysitter and let yourself have a break? You know, maybe, maybe not. So do kind things. Give yourself a bath. Let yourself go out with friends. Let yourself eat that piece of dark chocolate in the afternoon. That's what I love. But, you know, have a nap time, whatever it may be, right? And so self-kindness. And then second, and these kind of go hand in hand, is self-compassion, which to me is about what are you thinking about yourself and how are you cultivating, are you cultivating feelings of compassion toward yourself? Are you giving yourself a break? When you mess up, are you harder on yourself than you are on anybody else? Probably, you know, if your child or your husband or your partner or your friend or somebody might have done the same thing, you probably would have been like, oh, well, I see their circumstances and I understand, but we're so hard on ourselves, right? Yeah. So having that compassion for ourselves and realizing that it's okay if I mess up, it's part of the process and hopefully I can learn from it and grow through it, as I always like to say. So that's the second one. Third is to let love in. So sometimes we are so busy trying to take care of everybody else that we won't let love in. And, you know, I learned this a long time ago. I was in graduate, or not even graduate school, I was in college, and I had a psychology professor, and I went in to talk to him because I'd missed a couple classes and I needed to make sure I was making up the work right. And he started analyzing me the second I sat down, and he started analyzing me, and he just kind of looked at me, and we'd never met in person, and he said, "You're difficult to love." And I was like, what? I am not difficult to love. A lot of people love me. And then he said, I didn't say a lot of people didn't love you. I said, you're difficult to love. And I was so offended. And then I went home and I learned about Gestalt therapy, which is like really in your face. That's what he was doing. Mm-hmm. And I ended up writing my paper about how, at the end of the year, my term paper, about how he was right. Because I was in this phase of, if you're going to hurt me, I'm going to hurt you first. You know, if you're not going to love me the way I need to be loved, then I'm going to push you away. And so, you know, we do it as a protective mechanism. We do it for different reasons. But are we letting love in? And that includes, are we letting help in, right? Mm-hmm. Help, can we say, yes, thank you. You may come and help me. Or no, I don't need that, right? And then finally is, and this shouldn't be last, it really should probably be first, is self-care. So what are we doing to care for ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, and spiritually? Mm-hmm. Are we giving ourselves the time for those kinds of care? Are we getting enough sleep? Are we getting exercise each day, some kind of movement for our body that helps our brain as well? Are we getting, you know, good nutritional intake to help us have that energy that you're talking about, that we need to deal with our emotions and with life and with kids? Mm-hmm. You know, are we giving ourselves those breaks when we need it? Or are we just slamming like a computer that's frozen and we're just typing away and keep on trying to enter and it's just not going to work until you unplug it, right?
Yeah.
Self-care.
Yeah. Or then it's like, exactly. Yeah. You just froze. It was perfect timing. Because the technology has not been my friend recently. So I'm just okay, I will accept that this is where it is right now, and I'm just going to keep going through it because I have absolutely adored this conversation with you. So we're at our time. So just to recap, what are like the top 2-3 things that you really want our audience to come away from this conversation with?
One, I want mothers to know that you are not alone when it comes to emotional health changes, when it comes to struggles, when it comes to challenges. And also that you're not alone when it comes to being exceptional and having strengths. And that there are these mental health challenges we talked about, pregnancy, postpartum, as we grow older as moms, that's just part of it. But first of all, you're not alone. Second of all, I want you to know that there's help when you need it. And that there's love for us around. Sometimes we can even accept it from our kids. You know, I had a concussion 3 months ago and I literally couldn't get out of bed for a month, and my kids would help bring me food and I've never had them help me on that level before, but it's nice when we can let that love in. So number 2, I want you to know that there's help available. You don't have to suffer, and that you can not only build and overcome, but as I like to say, you can overcome your challenges, you can become who you want to be, and you can flourish. And then number 3, I just want to emphasize that, you know, self-esteem and identity, those changes are part of motherhood. And if we take the time to work on it and using principles like I described in the principle of the pyramid of self-worth, as we keep working on it and keep it a focus and keep aware of it and keep accepting and keep loving ourselves, we can feel that true worth, and we can start to see that, hey, I am good at this, and then we can go out and share our strengths with the world, and that's what this is all about, right? Getting out there, making a difference in our own way. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much. And I believe that you have a free gift to share with the audience.
I do. I actually have two. So for those who are interested in more information about postpartum mental health, I do have a free video, Postpartum Couples, that you can watch through my website. You can just enter your info and get access to that immediately. But also for everybody, I have the This Is How We Grow 30-Day Personal Growth Plan. So each day you'll get an email with a little short lesson and a few ideas of what you can do to start applying the things that we talked about today. And if you want to, then you could also join my free personal growth group that we each year we pick a different theme and work on, different areas to try to help us grow through motherhood and not just go through it. And I hope you'll also check out my radio show, Motherhood, that you can find through my website at Dr. Christina Hibbert, because we do a lot of that on there too.
I love it. Awesome. So thank you so much, Christina. I really appreciate it. And as a reminder to everyone, the email that you were sent with this video also has a link for you to be able to access the 2 free gifts. So I'll have links there. So just click on that link and you'll get access. And that concludes this interview of Motherhood Unlimited. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Christina. And be sure to tune in tomorrow for another exciting, inspirational, and helpful interview from Motherhood Unlimited. And I look forward to having you join us. Thanks. Bye.